Welcome back to another Bellows Blades review. Today we're going to take a look at a knife that I got in a couple days ago. So this isn't a true unboxing video because I've actually carried this knife for a couple days to get a better idea. I'm kind of thinking I'm moving toward that direction rather than doing an unboxing where you're seeing it the first time I'm seeing it. And the main reason for that is it's hard to give helpful opinions on something if I've only just literally seen it as I take it out of the box. I know some people like the unboxing videos, but in my case, I think I'm going to start doing a little bit more of the giving you an initial impressions review, which is a day or two after I got the item. And then, you know, down the road as I've had a chance to use it, maybe following up with a true full-length review of the knife and how it performs. So in this case, this knife that I got in is actually the Spyderco YoJumbo. In CPM M4. This is from Blade HQ. It's one of their exclusives. So it comes with the kind of their trademark DLC coated blade and the natural or Jade G10 handle scales. And right off the bat, having carried this for a day or two, I will say it's kind of a mixed bag. So we're going to get into that when I kind of hit a pros and cons list. But let's just go ahead and take a quick look at the knife itself as far as what it is and some of the specs on this thing. So this is, as I mentioned, the Spyderco YoJumbo, which is the larger version of the YoJumbo 2. And it is, of course, as I said, it's exclusive. It's an exclusive, Blade HQ exclusive. So you've got that CPM M4 still there. And then you can see there, of course, this is one of their golden Colorado made knives. And it actually has the designer's initials on there. This is a Michael Janik design knife. So if you don't know anything about him, you can kind of look it up. And there's some pretty cool videos out there on his kind of self-defense philosophy and the idea behind the design of this knife. So anyway, that's kind of what we're looking at to start with. So this is a larger knife, thus the name, the YoJumbo. Of course, a play on the size there. This is a 4-inch blade on this knife, so it is one of the larger knives that Spyderco makes. Spyderco is not really known for larger knives, so I always kind of get excited when they do have one come out. So 4 inches is about as big as you see on a Spyderco. They did have a couple models that have come out in the past that are bigger than that, but for the most part, 4 inches is about as big as you're going to get on a Spyderco. And so that's what this one is. One of the reasons I kind of wanted to pick it up. And then, of course, the YoJumbo has been out for a while, but when I saw it with the M4, that's when I wanted to go ahead and snag it. So 4-inch M4 blade, DLC coating, which Spyderco does a good job on, and it's that Warncliffe style blade on this knife, which gives you that completely straight edge, and then dropping down to the point there, which this is a needle sharp point, and we'll take a look at that here in a minute. The overall length of this knife is going to be 9.29 inches, so about 9 1/3 inches long. The handle's 5.37. So overall, you've got this, you know, just a little over 9 1/4 inch knife. You've got 5.3 ounces for the weight, so it's surprisingly a light knife. As big as a chunk of steel as that is, it's actually a fairly light knife. And that has to do, I think, with the G10. So, and then speaking of the G10, of course, one of the first things that grabs your attention is that Jade or natural G10. I will say that I personally am not a fan of natural G10. I have stayed away from it. This is the first knife I've ever bought with the natural or Jade G10 handle scales. And to be perfectly honest, my plan is to probably dye these things in the very near future. Some people really like the look of the natural G10, especially with the black hardware and the black blade. I don't know. It looks like it should glow in the dark or something. And if it actually did glow in the dark, maybe I'd be more interested in it, but it doesn't. It just looks like it. And I'm just not a big fan of the natural G10 look, so that'll probably get dyed. You can see here that you do have the 4-position pocket clip, so you can change this for tip up, tip down, left or right hand carry, which I always like when Spyderco does that on their knives. They don't have that on every knife, but the ones that do, it's a nice feature just to have the options to be able to carry this any way that you would want to carry it. I personally generally carry Spydercos the way they come, so with the tip up right hand carry. So that's what this one is. That's probably how I'll carry it, but you know, it's nice to have the options. So as far as this thing goes, right out of the box, I gotta say it was a little bit stiff. I'd say it's not now. You can kind of see there that it does, but you have to keep pressure on that that compression lock on the back. Otherwise, as it tries to push over, it pushes against the blade, and then you don't really have very smooth, you know, that smooth action that you have if you have it loose. So and I will say that it's actually loosened up even just with a couple days that I've carried it and kind of flicking it in, flicking it out. And that was kind of a fail there. I got my finger in the way. Flicking it in and out, it's already kind of loosened up a little bit. So, but it is good action. As far as centered, it actually, I think this one is riding a little bit to this side here. But it's fairly well centered. It's not rubbing anywhere. And like I said, I'm probably going to take this thing apart anyway to dye the scales, so I can do a little bit of modification if I need to recenter that. Speaking of the scales, I want to get into a real quick pros and cons of this knife. So, pros, I think, obviously, you're looking at the M4 steel. I consider that a pro. Now, the one con to that is it is definitely not stainless. M4 steel will rust very, very easily. In fact, I would almost say it's one of those steels that if you look at it wrong, it'll rust. Now, some people might disagree with that, but it's all about properly taking care of the blade. If you keep a light coat of oil on a M4 blade, you can keep it from rusting. That being said, that's one of the reasons why when I buy an M4 blade, I only buy it if it is DLC coated. That protective coating helps a lot with the corrosion issue. I don't typically like the black blades because the wear on them, I just don't like the way it looks as they get wear on them, but some people like that too. That's fine, but I will put them on this steel because I'd prefer to have that extra layer of protection. So, but the M4 steel itself, I consider that to be a pro for this particular model. The G10 handle scales are extremely grippy texture, very abrasive. So you could possibly shred some pockets with these things. It's kind of a pro and a con on that. So the pro obviously is it gives you a better grip, right? Because you've got all that traction. So you've got a good grip as far as the texture goes. The con is that it probably is going to be pretty rough on your denim. Speaking about the handle itself and the grip, one thing you'll notice is this is a very thin profile as far as side to side. It's not got a lot of bulk here. So with larger hands, that can make it harder to hold on to. So I think having that aggressive traction or that aggressive grip on the G10 is actually very beneficial to someone with larger hands on a knife like this. Sticking with the handle in the G10, the other thing I would definitely list in the con column is this extremely profiled handle shape. So the problem with these peaks and valleys when you do this on a knife is it's not going to fit every hand, right? It's not universal. Everybody's hand is not made the same and is not the same size. So when you're doing this, you're kind of guessing where somebody's hand, the average person's hand's going to land and hoping that you get it right. And I've said before, I have a little bit larger hands, so this is extremely uncomfortable for me. When I grip this knife, there's nowhere that I can put my hand that I'm not getting these peaks jabbing into me somewhere. So when I grab it naturally, this peak is actually hitting my middle finger, and this peak is literally hitting right into my pinky. It's like those fingers, let's see if I can turn around so you can see. Those fingers grip right on those peaks. I can try, the idea would be that your front finger's here and your pinky nestles here, and it all fits between these two peaks. The problem is I can do that if I really jam my hand up, but then my hand's not really gripping the knife very well. If I grab in a natural grip, I've got this on my pinky and I've got this on my middle finger. And so it's just not comfortable at all. And the reason that they kind of have this longer handle, the idea was that this piece, this extra piece sticking out could be used as a blunt force type self-defense tool. And that's really what this knife was designed for, was for self-defense, right? That's kind of the whole point of the knife. That was the design philosophy behind this knife, was for self-defense. So I will say that I said about modifying this knife a little bit. I think I will be dyeing these handle scales, and the more I've thought about it, I really didn't want to do this, but I think I'm going to actually have to do some modification to the handle shape and grind these peaks down so that you just have a straight tapered handle. I've seen that done on other YoJumbos, and I think it looks better too, but I think in my case it's almost going to have to happen because it just digs into my fingers, and if I were to use this thing much at all, that would get uncomfortable very, very quickly. So I would list, as far as the handles go, I would list these, this extreme, contouring as definitely a con. The aggressive texture, I would actually list that mostly as a pro. The only con being it could be hard on the clothing. And the thinner profile, it's better for when it's in your pocket. It just doesn't feel the hand as well. So part of me wishes that it was a little bit more, kind of rounded and contoured on the sides. But I understand why they didn't, so I'm going to leave that as a neutral. I don't really think it's a pro or a con. You can see here, if I can get this to show, I don't know how well I'm going to get this with the lighting, but that is extremely, I can't really show it, but it's an extremely, extremely sharp point. And it's like a needle. So that thing, I think, would easily break if basically any kind of side-to-side type action was, or forces were put on that. So I think that's something to maybe be aware of, is how thin that point is. Again, this thing's, I think, made for self-defense. So that point is a good stabbing point, and you've got that real deep hollow grind that's going to allow the material that it's cutting to spread out. And then you can see how much thicker it is toward the spine of the knife versus the tip of the knife. So it kind of acts with a cleaving action where it just kind of spreads that material out. So this would, be a very devastating knife in a self-defense situation. I believe that. Of course, you have that straight edge, which the argument behind that is when you're swinging a knife and it's coming in that arc shape. What Michael Janik actually has a video where he talks about this, and it makes a lot of sense. When you come into contact, the whole way through that arc, you've got blade contact. It's not curving away from what you're trying to contact. So as you press down, you've got even pressure from the moment it contacts down here all the way till you come down to the point of the knife. That pressure is evenly pressing through whatever object you're cutting. So that straight edge like that is actually a benefit in that type of a situation. So overall, guys, the design of the knife, it's hit or miss for me. It's kind of a little bit of both. I like the blade. I like the shape of the blade. I like the overall design of the knife. It really is just this handle doesn't work for me. So I think like I said, what I'm going to do is I will be dyeing these handle scales. Before I do that, I'm probably going to grind down these peaks at least a little bit, if not completely flat, so that I have a more comfortable handle for myself. But overall, guys, I'm pretty excited about the knife itself. I really do like the overall design of it. I know I kind of hit hard on the handle design, but otherwise, I think once this is comfortable in the hand as far as those two peaks go, this thing's going to feel good in the hand, and it's going to be a great knife, even if you're not using it for the intended purpose and just for, daily tasks. I think it's still, that Warncliffe design is also utilitarian as well. So I think you can use it for that as well. I like the larger knife. I don't know what you guys think of that. But I personally like larger knives. And just to give you an idea of what size we're talking about, right? So let's look at some other Spydercos. So the other large Spyderco that I kind of have myself is the Manix XL, right? So if you look at this, you can see that they're pretty close to the same size as far as the blade goes. So the blade is pretty much right there. The handles are actually a little bit longer on the YoJumbo because this curls around and that continues to kind of go straight. But they're very similar as far as the overall sizes of the knife. Completely different form and function, but about the same size. And then, of course, you've got the Paramilitary 2. The Paramilitary 2 is a smaller knife. You've got a smaller blade, although surprisingly not that much smaller as far as the actual steel of the blade, but the cutting edge is significantly less. If you look at the cutting edge, you've got an extra, ½ inch to 3/4 of an inch at least on the YoJumbo. So handle, obviously, the handle's quite a bit smaller or shorter as well. So overall, the Paramilitary 2 is quite a bit smaller knife. It's a little more comparable to the Manix 2 XL. The another knife that I just brought to look at is similar in a couple ways. So Cold Steel's known for their large knives, right? So I wanted to bring in a Cold Steel Recon 1. And you can see here that blade-wise, they're pretty much the same. Both have the black blade. I will say that the coating on this knife is going to work way better than the coating on the Cold Steel. Now this Cold Steel, the only reason I had bought this knife back when I bought it, and it's the only use I've ever had it for, is a self-defense knife. So this knife was never used. It was only carried in case it would need to be used. And because of that, I don't have any wear on the coating. I don't have any, that's a factory edge still on it. Extremely sharp factory edge. The only thing I did to this knife was smooth out under the belt clip because that aggressive texturing was tearing up my pockets. But you know, it's funny because I say about that, it's almost the exact same texture that's on this YoJumbo. The only difference is I've worn this one enough that some of the higher peaks have been kind of worn down. So it's not nearly as aggressive feeling, and abrasive feeling to the touch as this YoJumbo is. The YoJumbo feels much more aggressive and abrasive because it's brand new. But otherwise, I would say when these two were new, they probably had almost the exact same feel and texture as far as the G10 goes. But very comparable knives as far as the size overall. And even like I said, when it comes down to the G10. Now, I do think that the YoJumbo is a little bit thinner, it feels like, in the hand. I would say it's not much difference. It's pretty close. You're looking at, I can tell you just from the feel, the YoJumbo feels just slightly thinner. I don't know how to quantify that, but it feels just slightly thinner. And it definitely feels lighter in the hand than the Recon 1 does. As far as thickness goes compared to some of these other knives, you know, you're looking at, it looks like it is just a little bit thinner also than the Manix XL. And it actually looks it's about the same. Yeah, if anything, it might actually be slightly thicker than the Paramilitary 2, but about the same as the Paramilitary 2. So those are kind of the size comparisons, guys. It is a larger knife. I like that. I like that it's unique looking. It's the one thing that I kind of regret about the fact that I'm going to have to grind these down is it does take away a little bit of the uniqueness. You have all these peaks and valleys all over the knife, right? You've got them on the blade, going up the spine. You've got a couple peaks. You've got that sharp tip that kind of makes that look like a peak. Then you've got all these peaks in the handle. It looks kind of cool. It looks different, but practically it's just not. It's just not practical. That's the problem. This, unless your hand perfectly fits in all these valleys, this design on the handle just is not practical. So again, I've kind of harped on the handle a lot. I don't want to give the idea that I don't like the knife. I actually do really like the knife. I like the fact that I'm going to be able to kind of customize it and make it mine by dyeing these handle scales and modifying that handle a little bit. And hopefully once I get all that done, I can do a video to kind of show you what it looks like after the modifications have been done. But guys, sign off in the comments below. Do you carry a YoJumbo or a YoJumbo 2? What are your thoughts on this style of knife? And just kind of sound off. Let me know what your thoughts are. And once again, as always, if you are willing to, go ahead and like and subscribe to my channel and to the content. That way I can keep making this content for you guys. Let me know if there's anything specific that you would like to see, and maybe we can get that into a future video.